Welcome to Doctors on Call. I'm Jenna Miller. Over 70 million adults in the U.S. are obese and 99 million are overweight. Being obese means having so much body fat that your health is in danger. Having too much body fat can lead to type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, arthritis, sleep apnea, and stroke. The good news is that you can take steps to lose weight, and losing even some weight can make a big difference to your health and how you feel. You may not have to lose as much as you might think in order to start seeing health benefits. Obesity and weight management is our topic tonight on Doctors on Call with our guest, Dr. Dustin Moffit.
Presentation of Doctors on Call on Smoky Hills PBS is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from Gove County Medical Center in Quinter. Healing through caring. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, serving approximately 950,000 Kansans in various programs. A value Kansans trust. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association.
Russell Regional Hospital, experts, neighbors, friends.
Dr. Dustin Moffit was born and raised near Whitewater, Kansas. He received his bachelor's degree in chemistry from Wichita State University and his doctor of naturopathic medicine from the National College of Natural Medicine in Portland, Oregon. He is a member of the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians, the Oregon Association of Naturopathic Practitioners, and the Western Pain Society. Dr. Moffit is on staff with the Riordan Clinic in Hayes. Give us a call at 1-800-337-4788 with your medical questions about obesity and weight management on Doctors on Call. Doctors on Call brings you information which may be useful to you when you see your own physician. We'll go ahead and get started with some questions while we wait for those phone calls to come in. Thanks so much for being our guest tonight. First of all, let's talk about, is there any truth to the theory that some people have a predisposition to obesity through genetics, if you will?
Yes and no. I don't like to let genetics be used necessarily as an excuse. It does make it to where some may gain weight easier than others, but it's not a definitive answer. A lot of genetics are based on environmental surroundings, so what you've done with your lifestyle and expose yourself to may activate those underlying genes, but it's not a picture-perfect scenario. So everyone's going to be individual, and even those like in my family, there's quite a bit of obesity that runs, but I'm not exactly obese. So there are things that you can do to mitigate genetics, but it does mean you may have to work harder than the one next to you.
So on the flip side, is there a predisposition of people who just naturally are thin their entire lives?
There are some that do have an increased metabolism, and it does play somewhat into their genetics, but yet again, it's going to depend variably. So a lot of our gut bacteria is shared between family members because, of course, we were raised around each other. Antibiotic exposure has been increased, leads to increased obesity. So if a person hasn't had numerous rounds of them, it can lead to them having a better metabolism. At the end of the day, it's going to depend on how that person's genome works.
Now you mentioned gut bacteria. Let's talk about how important gut health is.
This is probably one of the first things that I actually talk with patients about. Anybody that is not having normal bowel movements to where they're regular at least 1 to 3 times a day, that's one of my first approaches because the stool is metabolic waste. And if we're building up metabolic waste, it means we're not actually fully detoxifying as we should and getting rid of those waste products that we're supposed to be getting rid of. Sometimes it's as simple as dehydration. Sometimes it's the gut bacteria that make up that biome that aren't allowing us to pass. Maybe it's we're not eating as much fiber. So we're supposed to be getting about 40 to 80 grams of fiber a day. Most Americans are less than 25.
Okay, are digestive enzymes, are those effective?
They can be if your pancreas is not secreting enough enzymes to break down the food. So if you're not breaking down your food properly, it will slow down digestion and you're not going to absorb as many nutrients. But there are ways to test to see if a person is secreting enough pancreatic enzymes. Most of the time it can be just a trial and error. See if you take it, does it improve? How often you're going? Are you noticing the texture of your stool has gotten more smooth in consistency rather than grainy? So.
Okay, excellent. I have a email question that we received online, so we'll go through that. This person asks or says, it was suggested by a cardiologist along with the endocrinologist who treats my thyroid condition that I have that this person should have gastric sleeve surgery. I am 58 years old and have type 2 diabetes and RA. I am 5'6" and currently weigh a lifetime high of 270 pounds. I have had this weight issue for the last 5 years, but the last 12 months have been the worst. The thyroid issues coincide with this. Because of the number and severity of the medical issues I have, the surgery was suggested. How effective is this type of surgery and what is the recovery process? This person worries about healing internally due to the diabetes.
That's probably a question better asked for a gastroenterologist. However, I will kind of put my opinion in here. Gastric sleeve is not the perfect answer. Most of the time, what has been done to achieve the weight gain over time, it doesn't correct it. So will it help a person lose weight quickly? Yes. Does it lead to further complications down the line? Yes. I've seen a lot of adhesions or scar tissue in the gut that have happened, which leads to a whole nother line of issues. If there's hypothyroid, I believe that was part of it, getting a doctor that knows how to better manage a hypothyroid condition can obviously be a good answer to that. Working with physical therapists or personal trainers or dietitians or somebody to kind of help guide along that way. I would say try to exercise every potential possibility to avoid the surgery. In a last case scenario, if nothing else works, then maybe resort to that. But they don't come without a cost.
Absolutely. Now, we were talking about the hyper or hypothyroidism. Is that, can that affect a person's ability to lose weight?
Absolutely. So our thyroid is responsible for many things. Metabolism is probably one of the biggest ones that we're aware of. Helps with body temperature, helps with our immune system, can help regulate our hormones. So even if you don't have hormone issue directly, hypothyroid can lead to that. So hypothyroid is the basis of our metabolism and our immune system.
And how does a person go about correcting that?
There are a number of different things. Sometimes it's as simple as changing the diet to where you're getting some of those essential nutrients. So some of the top key factors in thyroid health are going to be selenium, magnesium, zinc, iodine, and B vitamins collectively. Those can help to make the thyroid function as it should, because if one of those nutrients are deficient, you're not going to be able to fix it. And there are plenty of foods that are rich in those, so it's not always a pill. But for fixing hypothyroid, most of the time it does resort in some kind of a medication.
Okay. We might talk a little bit more about that later, but right now we're going to go to the phone lines. We've got Lacey on the line from Hayes. Hi, Lacey. Go ahead with your question for Dr. Moffit tonight.
Hi. I've just begun my weight loss journey, eating better, exercising, but I'm wondering if there's any natural supplement that could aid in boosting my metabolism.
The most important one for boosting your metabolism is going to be taking the one that you're deficient in. The best way to tell if you are deficient in a certain nutrient is going to be to test. Research has not proven one specific nutrient or supplement that aids in weight loss. A good easy one that almost everybody indulges in is going to be caffeine. So drinking coffee can help to reduce appetite, or green tea, or whatever it should be. There are certain supplements, or like green tea, that can lead towards stabilizing insulin, and insulin is probably half of the cause behind why weight gain is existent. Next up, I would probably say mitochondrial dysfunction.
How does a person go about testing? Do you do that at the Riordan Clinic?
We do that at our clinic. We can test for all kinds of vitamins and mineral deficiencies. We can check your hormones. We can check thyroid. We do a lot of specialized testing for autoimmune conditions that can lead to it. heavy metal toxicity, so that there's a whole slew of tests, and each person is going to be individual. We even do stool testing for those that don't have the proper gut biome.
Okay, you mentioned autoimmune. How much does that play into the role of gaining weight or not being able to lose?
So I'm going to link that back to a thyroid condition, just because Hashimoto's is the most common autoimmune thyroid condition for hypothyroidism. If you've got Hashimoto's, what it does is it means that your body is sending out antibodies that are attacking the thyroid hormones and even the thyroid itself. If that is one of the predominating autoimmunities, then it's going to be so hard to regulate the thyroid. A lot of people, I say, are on a roller coaster ride while we're trying to get it figured out. So you may feel hyperthyroid one day, you may feel symptoms of hypothyroid the next.
What are the guidelines for BMI?
BMI is a tricky one. I try not to concentrate overtly on it. It is a helpful indicator, but it is not definitive. So BMI over 30 is going to be identified as obesity. So 25 to 30 is where we think of overweight, and then anything 25 and below can be normal range or underweight. If a person is working out or has more muscle mass than what they should be, or not what they should be, but working out and obtaining muscle mass, their BMI is going to look heavier. BMI is really set on for children. It's the best metrics for there. It does play into the role somewhat on guiding clinical assessment, but I don't want anybody out there to ever concentrate on just that BMI. So to throw my personal information, I'm a 29 BMI, and so that's 1 point away from being obese, and it's just not a good indicator.
Okay, excellent. How much impact does weight have on heart disease, the potential of heart disease?
I would say quite significantly. So extra weight can mean that you have higher chance of having higher blood pressure, and blood pressure being elevated consistently can lead to cardiovascular stress. What was the original?
The heart diseise, how much will
it play into it? So when your heart has to work harder, the weight can play into that, but I don't know where to go with this one.
Sure. Well, we might think about that, and we'll come back to it. We got Elizabeth on the line from Hayes right now, so we'll see what she has to ask. Hi, Elizabeth. Go ahead with your question for Dr. Dustin.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
I had overactive thyroid and a goiter when I was 25, and I was wondering. I drank radioactive iodine to help with the problem at that time, and they never restricted me to being around my babies or my children at that time. And I've always worried about whether or not that would have had any effect on them.
There is no direct correlation of whether or not it can harm. Obviously, any kind of radiation, and babies tend to be pretty sensitive to that kind of stuff. It happened. I would say that there's no fingers to point here. You can't ever blame yourself for that kind of scenario, because you just don't know. So unless you had a gygometer where you were standing so far away from it where you could actually assess if there was radioactive, then it's not something that you should ever hold against yourself.
Okay, what about a food journal? How effective is a food journal in losing weight?
Most people don't stick with them too much. Usually what I do is I encourage you to do it for trying about a week. So the importance behind a food journal is a lot of the times we get in these habits where we just eat without thinking about it. So what that does is it puts it in front of you so you can see what you're actually eating, maybe how often you're eating. One thing it doesn't take into size is size of meal. So not everybody will know that we need to weigh out certain amounts, or that we need to kind of visualize and measure how much we're actually intaking. But it's helpful in identifying trends is the biggest issue.
Okay. Are there certain foods that can help a person shed that unwanted body weight?
Certain what?
Foods.
Foods. The best one I can say, eat more vegetables. They're high in micronutrients, which are those vitamins and minerals. They're high in antioxidants, and overall, they're probably one of the more nutritious, overlooked meals. And then the other thing is that they're filling. So when you eat, nobody can sit there and eat 12 pounds of salad. It slows you down, it makes you take more time eating it, and it fills up, that roughage fills up the stomach so that it makes us feel full before we actually realize it. And a lot of times when we get calorically dense foods like French fries, right? So somebody can sit down and eat a whole bunch of those, or potato chips, and we don't get that satiety signal or the feeling of being full before we've ingested 3,000 calories.
What about carbs? How important is it to stay away from carbs?
I'm not an anti-carb person. I do think that there are certain people out there that should limit it. If you struggle with your blood sugar, that's absolutely something you do want to try to limit until you figure out your blood sugars. But carbs are great. They actually help us with muscle development. They help us with our neurological system. So it's not something that everybody needs to avoid. There are plenty of other dietary lifestyles out there that don't believe in carbs. There is no one perfect diet for everyone. So trying a variety of different dietary protocols, if you will, and adapting and remembering what your body thrived with and what it didn't. So that's the best way to identify your true diet.
Right now, some of the big weight loss programs, if you will, are ketogenic or paleo diet. What are your thoughts on those?
They can be beneficial for many people. However, genetics do play into this. So ketogenic diet, there are some that cannot tolerate high fat protein or high fat content in their diet. They may thrive off of it short term, and then all of a sudden their body will flip a switch. So those genetics, it's all about a switch. If something balances it out and nothing gets activated, that's fine. But eventually, if you keep pushing it over the edge, that switch can be flipped, and then all of a sudden somebody on keto that was losing weight starts gaining weight. Paleo, same thing. The best thing I can say about keto and paleo, no diet should really ever include desserts. Most people find that's the first thing they start researching is looking at desserts, what they can have. But if you're wanting to do the high fat, high protein diet, the most important thing I can say with either keto or paleo, don't forget about the vegetables. Most of those have actually been written out. The original person that came up with the ideas, vegetables are a very, very important part of that meal.
And you mentioned the desserts. Are there any substitutes, healthy substitutes that can take the place of, for those who might be a sweet tooth or have those sugar cravings? What can they put in place of that?
One of my go-to meals, or not meals, but snacks is going to be, I eat some dates, I eat some nuts and seeds, maybe some prunes. I occasionally have ice cream and such like that, but my ice cream, I do go with the stevia sweetened stuff, or sometimes I'll just mix up frozen bananas and put them in the blender with some blueberries, and that's my ice cream. So always trying to find ways. Now, I have a sweet tooth too, so I do find ways to meet that, but I don't see it as I have to have it. I do it as, if I'm going to have a sweet treat, how can I best nourish my body through that sweet treat? So chocolate is a good one, but realistically, the health properties don't come in until you're at that 72% or above on dark chocolate.
Okay, what about intermittent fasting? What are your thoughts on that?
Research shows that it can prove to be extremely beneficial. Yet again, it is going to depend on everybody else. If you have insulin resistance or you go into hypoglycemic areas, intermittent fasting may not be for you quite yet. I've personally exercised it here and there. I don't do it all the time. I kind of listen to my body. If I get to the point where I just don't want to eat 3 meals a day and I only want to have 2, I'll fast throughout that. I tend to do fasting mostly in the morning because it's easier, because then you just piggyback off of when you've been sleeping, because I can't eat while I sleep, but it can be very beneficial, especially if you have some kind of insulin resistance overall. I know I said that it can be contraindicating at first, but eventually it does stabilize out a lot of blood sugar values and insulin.
Okay, we're going to go back to the phone lines. We've got Lou on the line from Hayes. Hi, Lou. You are live on the air on Doctors on Call. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, if you've had gallbladder surgery, had your gallbladder out, should you avoid that foods that are fatty or fried?
It would probably be best. Fatty and fried foods aren't the best for really any of us. So everything in moderation. That being said, that gallbladder is a storage device for bile. You still produce bile from the liver, but you just don't get a whole squeeze out of the bile salts. And the bile salts are what help us break down those fats. So all in all, reducing the fat per meal and spreading it out through the day, if that's the way you want to get it into your diet, that's going to be the best case scenario.
Before the phone call, we were talking about intermittent fasting. On the flip side, what are the benefits of, you also hear about eating 6 meals a day, the smaller meals, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm personally not a big fan of the grazing thing unless you actually are burning enough calories to make it through that. That can promote a lot of insulin resistance. So if you're consistently eating and keeping blood sugars elevated all the time, it's not as healthy for our body and lifestyle. It can be beneficial in losing weight because then maybe you only have 200 here, 200 here, and at the end of the day it can be balanced, but it's definitely not my favorite approach.
Okay. How important is protein in your diet?
Extremely. So proteins and healthy fats are two of the biggest things after vegetables or healthy fiber consumption. Protein, especially for those with diabetes, can be crucial. You can overproteinate because proteins break down into sugars too. But protein, an adequate amount, not an excessive amount, but somewhere in every percentage is going to be different. But ideally about 20 to 40% of your diet should be protein.
And can you give us some examples of good sources of protein?
Animal products are always a great one. Nuts and seeds are a fantastic one when I don't feel like eating more meat. Legumes or beans are a good one. Grains can fall into that, but grains can be pretty carb heavy, and not everybody is going to tolerate those well. Tofu, if you're looking for vegan options, that nowadays there's the newer style plant meats per se. I try to avoid those. For the most part, those are fairly processed foods. So ideally sticking with less processed foods is going to be your best case.
Okay, we're back to the phone lines now. We've got Julie on the line from Gorham. Hi, Julie. Go ahead with your question for Dr. Dustin.
Hi. My question is, does Dr. Moffit believe in any kind of appetite suppressants or anything to help your metabolism?
The best way that I encourage appetite suppressant is by having well-balanced meals. So a well-balanced meal, and everybody may be different from each other, but a well-balanced meal will stabilize blood sugar levels better, keep you satiated a lot longer, so feeling full, which means at the end of the day, when you feel nourished, your body is not going to go back and crave. That is the best way to reduce that hunger signal. Like I said before, caffeine is definitely one of them that can step in. It's a proven thing, but also if you over caffeinate, you can get a drop in blood sugar to where you can get too hungry too. We've all gotten the shakes of drinking maybe too much. But for a supplement to reduce the hunger cue, if you're having troubles absorbing, sometimes a multivitamin is a good cue for taking the supplement. But that's purely if you're just not absorbing all those nutrients.
And how important would a detox be? If somebody is wanting to kickstart their weight loss program, is a detox beneficial?
I try to do daily detox. So the most important part is to have a detoxifying lifestyle rather than to rely on one specific event or a specific program or a supplement regimen to do that. There Now there are supplements that can aid in that, and I often go through that in our clinical practice. But to detoxify, the best thing, those fruits and veggies are a great way. Making sure you're having daily bowel movements, if not a couple of them at each time. Drinking plenty of water. Water can be naturally detoxifying.
And exercise. We've talked mostly about food and that. How important is exercise in getting that weight loss up?
Extremely important, but everybody's exercise is going to be different. So I work with a lot of people out there who their exercise is carrying laundry baskets up and down. That adds up pretty quick. But the most important part is get movement in. Ideally every day, but the research shows 3 to 5 days a week and going anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour for an exercise session. So the thing I do try to encourage those that don't maybe go to a gym or go to classes or such is do your daily activities, but always try to make maybe just a little extra set movement. So to where maybe you go for a walk for 15 minutes twice a day or something of that sort.
Okay. Excellent information. Thank you so much to Dr. Dustin Moffit from the Riordan Clinic for being our guest on this week's Doctors on Call. Be sure to tune in next week when we'll be discussing physical therapy. You can email us questions for next week's program at doctors@shptv.org. Thank you for joining us for Doctors on Call. I'm Jenna Miller.
Presentation of Doctors on Call on Smoky Hills PBS is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from Gove County Medical Center in Quinter, healing through caring. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, serving approximately 950,000 Kansans in various programs. A value Kansans trust. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association.
Russell Regional Hospital, experts, neighbors, friends.